Right, so for this part, we need to set up our IBSend button there. So I'm going to say IBSend equals, and it's an image view, image button. And we're going to say find view by ID, and it's going to be IBSend. Okay, that's just sending up the button. And then we can go and call IBSend dot set on click listener, and we're going to say new on click listener. So this is then if the user clicks on that send button in the maps activity, clicks on that image button, that will basically be, let me just zoom in quickly, this button above the map. So if it's a family member that is trying to log in now and send the location, we'll have that button at the top. But if you want to see the whole family, we won't have that button at the top. So we'll define that one also now. So in the maps activity, if the user then clicks on the send button, what should we do? Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do there is to just show a toast. Now you can show a progress bar, whatever you want to show there if you want to, but I'm just going to say busy sending location. So when the user clicks on this button, it means that he wants to send now his location. So I'm going to say busy sending location, and then I'm going to test if it's not an existing point. Now I'm sure this is going to make sense after we do this whole IBSend on click listen and now on what is this existing point. So if a user is updating now his location and there's not an existing point on back endless yet, which means that we haven't saved his location online yet, then we want to save his location now. And if there is an existing point, which will be the else part there, if there's already a point saved on back endless for him or in the online database for him, then we want to remove that point and we want to create a new point so that we keep on updating his location. So that's basically the use of this is existing point. So if there's no existing point, which means it's the first time the guy's using the app or whatever, then what do we want to do? So what we want to do now is to get the location. So in order to get the location and send through a geo point to back endless or to the online database, I'm going to use a list there that will be a string of all the categories I want to add this point to. So I'm going to call this categories equals new array list, also of type string, and that will be a list then of all my categories. And to the categories, I will add now all the categories I want this point to be in. So I'm just going to name this one family. Now remember, if we go to the website now, and you've got categories here, and your category does not exist when you make this call. So you can see that the category family does not exist. So if I make this call now to add this new point or geo point to the specific family category, and the category does not exist, it will create that category for me. But remember, in the main activity, we also created the family category. So as soon as we run the application, the family category will be created, or you can leave out this part there totally. You can remove it. It will also work, because while creating a new point, adding it to a category that does not exist will also create the category for you. Okay, so now with the data that you've got on back endless, you can see there's some metadata also. So we can send more data with a point than just the latitude and the longitude. For example, this metadata is extra data that you add to the point or to the geo point. So I can, for instance, say there, well, this is the latitude and the longitude for Peter, and this was when he last updated. Okay, so that's some metadata that we're going to pass with. So in order to do the metadata, we're going to use a Java map, Java util map. And it's going to take in a key value pair. So the key will be of type string, and then the value could be any type of object there. And I'm going to call this one meta equals new hash map. And then the key and the value again will be of type string and of type object, any type of object. So then we're going to say meta.put, and then it accepts the key and the value pair. So the first key will be the name key. So that's the name of the data that I want to pass through is called name. And then what is the data I want to pass through there? So in this case, I'm going to call getIntent, which gets the intent that started the maps activity. So I'm going to call getIntent dot getStringExtra, and I'm going to ask for returning me that type that was passed through. So remember, in the main activity, we sent through data when the user clicked on a button. So if the user clicked on BTN family, we sent through data with the name of type, and then the data was either family, Peter, Tabu, Nelson, Susan. So that's the type of the data. So now in the maps activity, we say get the intent that started this activity. So in the main activity, we created an intent that starts the map activity. So it's this intent, get the intent, and call getStringExtra, because the data that we passed through was using the putExtra method, but the data was a string. So we're going to say getStringExtra, and you get the name of the data. So if the user clicked on, let's say, family there, then by calling type there, we'll return family, which means that I will get back family there. Okay, so we basically just inserting to the metadata who has clicked or which of these buttons was clicked at this stage. So the name will either be family or one of those family members. And then I'm going to also add meta.put, and I want to have when last did this specific person update himself on the map. And for this, I'm going to use a new date object from java.util. And on that date object, we're going to call toString, which will give you the date and time, well, currently when we are doing this. So when we're sending through this new location, we get the time and the date, the exact time and date up until the second when this thing was then sent. Okay, so that's the metadata, and you can add as many put methods there with metadata if you want to add some more information. And then if you are ready to send this location now through, you can just call backendless.geo, and then we're going to call save the point for me. And the point that we want to save, you can see there, it first receives the latitude, then the longitude. So I'm going to pass in my latitude, my longitude. Then it wants the categories. So I'm going to send through the categories, which is this list there of categories. Then we're going to send through the metadata. And after sending through the metadata, we call new async callback, and that goes into the background and it does it for you. So now what happens, we've got a list of all the categories we want to add this point to. We've got some metadata. So we send through the point, the geo point. We say it should be added to that category. This is the metadata for it, and then go into the background and do it. So now if it goes to handle response, it means that that specific object, which is the latitude and the position, the geo point, has been saved successfully online. If it goes to handle fault, then something unfortunately happened and it could not save that point. So we're going to say fault.getMessage, and it will display that message with a normal toast for us. So now if we go to handle response, we know that it has been saved successfully, so we can just say successfully saved location. Two C's there, successfully saved location. Okay. Then after showing that to the user, I'm going to say existing point should now be true, because now we have saved something for this user already. Sorry, it's not, it's is existing point, sorry. Let's say is existing point should then be true. And then we can also set that existing point to this new point that was saved now, which is this response basically there. And now that response will be the same as the geo point that we just passed through. So the exact same one that was saved now. So then the existing point will be that point, and we set is existing point to true. So now we know that we have saved a point or a specific geo point for this user already. So now again, when it goes to this if, then after saving this point, it will obviously not go to is existing point, which means that there is a point already online that exists for this user, and we should go to the else to first remove it and then add the new point. Okay, so at this stage, I think this part is done. We can go into the else now. So what is the else? The first if statement was if it's not an existing point, then just create the point online. But if it is a point that already exists, so if the user already has a point online or a GeoPoint online, then we need to go and remove that point. So we're going to go to backendless.geo.removePoint, and we're going to pass in the existing point of the user there, and then we're going to say new async callback. So basically what we're doing now is if there's already a location saved online for this user, we remove that existing point, and when it's done removing, it's going to go into handle response. Otherwise, we're just going to show that message again in the handle fault if something went wrong. So in handle response now, after removing the point, we can now actually go and add that point again. So I'm going to do this whole part there again. So I'm going to copy it, put it into that handle response. So again, I'm going to create the category of family. I'm going to add the type when it's been updated, save that point, see when it successfully saved the location, set it to true again, set the new existing point to that point, and if there's a fault, handle the fault. Okay, so this is then when the user clicks on the IB send button. We check if it's not an existing point, we just save the point. But if it is an existing point, we first remove what we've got online and then save the point again. Okay, so now what I want to do is to go back to the onCreate. I think just before we do this onClick listener there, what we want to do is to first get the type now, because let's say the user starts, or we start this application and we want to see the family or all the family members on the map. So it will look like this, something like this. So there's the map and there's the button. So if the user clicks on the first option to only see the family members, we don't want to show that button at the top. We only want to show the map, and then on the map we want to show all the locations of all the people. But if he logs in with a specific user, let me just go to that part. Where's the main? So if they click show family location, we do not want to see the button at the top. We only want to see the location of the family members. But if he clicks on login Peter, Tabu, Nelson, or Susan, then obviously we must show that button so that they can send their location. Okay, so that's what we need to do. We first need to see then when the application starts, when the onCreate of the maps activity start, what is the type of user that's currently, or which button was basically clicked. So I'm going to say type equals, again I'm going to call get intent, which gets the intent that activated this activity, and we're going to call get string extra, and the value that we want is that type that we sent through for the button. So remember, in the main activity we sent through the type. So we want to see, is it family or is it one of the other users? Okay, so we've got the type now. So now we can go and test if this type dot equals, if it equals family. So if it equals family, we don't want to see the button at all. So we're going to say ibsend dot set visibility, and we're going to set it to view dot gone. Okay, so that the user won't see that button at the top and it can't be clicked, because we're just going to show him the family members. Now we want to go and create a new backendless query. So we're going to use a backendless geo query there, and I'm going to call it geo query because now we want to go to the database online and get all the GeoPoints for the family and show it to the user if it's of type family. So then the backendless geo query equals a new backendless GeoQuery. Then we're going to say GeoQuery.add category, and the category that we want to search for is all the markers in the family category. And then I'm going to call GeoQuery.set include the metadata. So remember, when we saved it, we include this map of metadata, which got the name of the user and when last did it update. So if you want to get that back from the database, you must call set include metadata and set that to true. And then we can go to backendless to fetch those GeoPoints. So we're going to say backendless.geo list.getPoints. And the points, we're going to pass in the geoquery. So it's going to retrieve all the points in the family category. And then we're going to say new async callback. And then it goes to the background, runs through, go to the database, searches for all the geopoints in the family category. And then when it's done, you go to handle response. And there's the list of all the geopoints that's currently in the family. Okay. Then on this handle fault there, we can just use the same toast again to display if there's something that happened, but we are interested in this handle response right now. So what I'm going to do now, remember we've got a list there of geopoints at the top, so you can set your list there to this one that was passed in, which is response. So we've got the list of all geopoints that belongs to the family category. Then we're going to test if this list.size, if it's empty, which means it's not equal to 0, not equal to 0. So we're testing if it's not empty, if the list is not empty, because if the list is empty, we cannot really set any geopoints because then we don't have any geopoints. So we first check if the size of the list is not equal to 0, we know that we have got points or geopoints there. And then we need to run through all of those geopoints and set them on the map. So I'm going to say integer I equals 0, I less than that list.size. Gives me the number of elements in the list, and then I++. So then this for loop runs through every element in the list, which is every geopoint in the list. Now what we're going to do is to create a new point there, and we're going to call this one, let's call it position marker, equals new lat long. And now we're going to go to the list, we're going to call get I at the specific position in the for loop. So list.getI gets you the geopoint, and on that geopoint we can go and call get latitude, which will get me the latitude for the first argument, and the second argument I'm going to say list.getI.get longitude, and that gets me the latitude and the longitude for that specific marker that I want to place on the map. Then go to your map object again, and we're going to say add marker. Again, new marker options. Let's go to the new line there. I'm going to add a position there. I'm not going to add an icon this time, so I'm just going to say position, and then I'm going to pass in this position marker. Then go to dot snippet. So I'm going to talk about the snippet now, and then there can also be a title there. So I'm going to set a title there, and the title will be list.getI.get metadata, and now we want to get the metadata, and I just need to indicate the key name there, and I will get the value. So remember when we send through, there's a key and a value. So I indicate the key, which is name, and it will return the value for me, and the value will be the specific button that was clicked. So in this case it will be Peter or John or which were those people. It's Peter, Tabu, Nelson, Susan. Okay, it will be one of those. Right, so and then the snippet. So the title is like the main heading of your marker. The snippet will be like a subheading. So in the subheading, we're going to say list.getI.get metadata. And the metadata that I want there is that updated. Okay, then we just call .toString there. And also there .toString. Okay, then we are done. Right, so that's adding the marker. There's the position, there's the snippet, that's like a subheading, and your heading, your title will be that one. Okay, so that's adding a new marker on the map. So it will already be added to the map, but we won't move the camera to that specific position. So you can see on the map where the user is by scrolling through the map or whatever you want to do with the map. Right, now we've tested if it's a family, if we click the first button there to show the family location, then we should do this part where we hide the button and we get all the points and we add them to the map. So the else part of this if will then be if it's not the first button that was clicked, which means it could be any one of these. It could be Peter, Tabu, Nelson, or Susan. But for all four of them, we're going to do the exact same thing. So there's only going to be one else there. And for them, we will also go and say ibsend.set the visibility to view.gone. So we're first going to hide the button from them, and then you'll see at the end we will show the button to them again. So what we want to do now is to quickly go to back endless again and get the back endless query. Let me just see, back endless geoquery again. I'm going to call it geoquery again equals new back endless geoquery. And what I want to do is to go to geoquery dot add the category again, and the category will again be family. Again, I'm going to say geoquery dot set include meta, set it to true. And now what I want to do is to go into back endless again and fetch all the specific geo points that's part of the family category. And then when I've got all of those points, I want to see if any one of those points metadata has got the name of the button that I just clicked. So let's say Peter clicks. I want to go to back endless and see, where's the map activity now? We want to see if that user actually exists or has a point, a geo point online already. Because if he has a geo point online already, I can set my existing point, is existing point, to true, and I can set that as the existing point. Okay, so that when he clicks the button again, I know if there's an existing point or if there's not an existing point. Okay, so let's go to the background again. So we're going to say back endless dot geo dot get points again. So we're going to do the same thing again, passing in the geo query and the second argument getting all the data using the new async callback. So again, we show the toast there if something went wrong. Again, I'm going to say that list of mine should be this list of response. Again, I'm going to test if this list.size is not equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, I can work with those geo points. Again, I'm going to run that for loop, integer I equals 0, I less than list.size, I plus plus. But now I want to test if that specific, I'm going to run a for loop through every geo point, and I want to check if there's a geo point with this specific guy. So let's say Peter clicks on the button. So what I want to do in back endless, I want to go and check if there is already a geo point for Peter online. So I'm going to test if list.getI gets the geo point, .get metadata gets me some metadata, and I want the name because I want to check for Peter. And toString will give me the name Peter or whatever was saved there. And I want to check if it equals. Now I'm going to call getIntent.getStringExtra, and I want to go to the type. So remember what's happening now is if the user clicks on, let's say Peter clicks login Peter there, then the type will be saved as Peter. So I'm checking the name saved online if it's equal to Peter there, the type. Okay, so now if it is, then I'm setting the existing point to true, which means already online he's got an existing point, and I'm going to set existing point to this new point, which is list.getI. That will be the geo point. So I'm setting it to that. And if I get it, I can actually break out of this for loop, because then I know that there is an object online, a latitude, longitude for Peter online, and I break out. But then existing point and is existing point values are set, and then when he clicks on the button, we can take action by using if it's not an existing point, we'll do this, otherwise we'll do this. Right, so let's just go back to that one again. We're not finished yet. So after that if statement, we can go and say ibsend.set set visibility, and we're going to set the visibility to view.visible. So basically, when we start here, we set the visibility of the send button to gone until we've gone through to back endless and checked if there's an existing point for him. And if we're done, that's handle response, we're already done in it, we will then go and say, well, let's set that button now visible, because now we know if there's an existing point or not, and then you can click the button. But before we know whether he's got an existing point or not, he cannot click the button. So that's why we do this set visibility in the handle response. Handle response, then we know that we've got all the geo points and everything is set. Then we set the button to visible. Right, and that's then the end of this video. So the last video we'll just run and see if there's some errors that we need to correct. So this is basically the last coding video. The next one will just be to run the application.